This Sunday marks the 15th anniversary of a very dark day for America. The 9/11 attacks on the World Trade Towers in New York, the Pentagon in Northern Virginia, and a commercial flight that ended up crashing in a field in Pennsylvania on September 11, 2001. The American Civil Liberties Union Virginia and Richmond Peace Education Center are hosting a one-day conference to talk about how events of that day and policy decisions that followed altered the definition of liberty. The executive director of the ACLU of Virginia, Claire Guthrie Castañaga, is here today with us. Good morning.
Good morning, Cheryl.
First of all, it's hard to believe it's been 15 years since 9/11.
It is, and it's important that this weekend that we're all going to take a moment to reflect and remember, very thoughtfully what happened and the people who lost their lives that day. And then the next week, we're going to have our conference to look at the question of how we reclaim our democracy, because we feel like some of the policy decisions that have been made since 9/11 have really compromised our liberty.
And a lot of things have changed and a lot of things have stayed the same in those 15 years.
Yeah, it has. And one of the exciting things about this conference, which is going to be at the University of Richmond on Saturday, September 17th, is that we're going to be talking about a full range of things. And we have speakers from all over the country coming in, including representatives from 9/11 families, people from our national ACLU, individuals from the Southern Poverty Law Center, talking about the militarization of our police, the increase in government surveillance, our reliance over the last 15 years on war as a means of resolving conflict instead of softer diplomacy, and the politics and the psychology of hate that have driven a lot of the decision making and continue to influence people's views of how government ought to operate, how the police ought to operate, and how we ought to be with our neighbors.
Those are some very strong topics. How did you all decide that that's what the focus was going to be of the conference?
Well, the Richmond Peace Education Center and the ACLU of Virginia have been working together to decide, what are the issues that have come up since 9/11, where we really are looking at encroachments on our constitutional liberties, and also what is America and how is America. And we are very concerned jointly, our organizations, about the changes that have been wrought in our social structure. I mean, we have police departments that have gotten the tools of war, in surplus military equipment. And it's very hard if you're dressed like a soldier and you have the tools of a soldier not to see yourself as being at war with the community as opposed to at one with the community, as Chief Durham wants to say. And so, these are important issues for every Virginian and every American, and we think it's time to reflect on, what's happened and kind of what's become a new normal that we would hope isn't a normal going forward.
The theme and the title is Reclaiming Our Democracy, 15 years after 9/11. Reclaiming our democracy. And this is an opportunity for people to come out and speak and say how they feel.
Right, absolutely. We have the conference structured so there's plenty of opportunity for people to interact. And we also will be encouraging people to take action after the conference, giving them specific ideas about how they can interact with their communities in a way that address some of these issues. I mean, the reality is if you have no privacy from the government, you have no liberty. And so if you're being surveilled 24/7, it changes the fabric of your community and of your behavior. And so, we really want to empower people to ask the right questions. I mean, if you live in the city of Richmond, you should have the right to expect your elected officials to take a very active role in supervising whether the police acquire a technology like these things called stingrays that pretend to be cell phone towers and could be outside this building getting everybody's cell phone numbers and tracking us. Or, as happened in Baltimore, those stingrays were deployed specifically and more frequently in communities of color than in the rest of the city, and they were complemented by aerial surveillance in Baltimore. And no one knew it was happening except the people who were doing it. And we think we want to empower people to ask the right questions so that they know what's happening and they can engage and talk about how they think their communities should be policed and whether we should be approaching a conflict with diplomacy as opposed to war, and also thinking about how we don't get sucked into the idea that there are specific kinds of people that we should be fearful of in a stereotypical way. The politics and the psychology of hate is a very powerful aspect of all of this.
And that's why the American Civil Liberties Union has been and still is so important in our community, isn't it?
Well, it is, and we're about principle. We're about being the guardians of liberty and making sure that we stand between you and the government when the government encroaches on our liberties. And the Richmond Peace Education Center, who is our co-sponsor, is a very profound organization that really is focused on the whole question of how we resolve conflict in a peaceful way.
And you're inviting anyone and everyone to come to the conference.
We're inviting the entire community. We do have a limited number of seats, and so we encourage people to go online now and register. They can go on our website, acluva.org, and look at there's a little button for the conference and register. There are only 200 seats and they're going fast, and so we really hope people will step forward and register and come and be part of this important conversation.
Well, we'll be interested to see what comes out of it. Thank you so much, Claire, for joining us today.
Well, thank you, Cheryl, for having us.
You're
We really
very
appreciate
welcome.
it.
Here are the details once again. ACLU of Virginia and the Richmond Peace Education Center present Reclaiming Our Democracy, 15 years after 9/11. It's coming up next Saturday, September 17th on the campus of the University of Richmond.